finale of our series, If We Build It, right? And we've been on this journey moving toward the second part of that phrase, right? If we build it, good job. That was pretty good. All right, be ready to do that some more. But, I was talking to someone, in between services, and I was talking to a member of our leadership team, and he said, "I don't know if you knew this, but I'm from the small town where they filmed the movie Field of Dreams." And he said, yeah, they built it, and people to this day are still coming to that town to go visit the field. And I thought, wow, I wish you would have told me this 2 weeks ago, for one, right? It was such a good, but then, then I thought, well, 10:45 service, right? You are the only people that got to that detail. So you're special, right? But really, this series has been about these moments in our lives where when we step out in faith, right, when we take some risks, when we respond to this feeling of a call or an invitation from our life, something happens, right? They will come. What is it that happens in your life? And something that I think we've probably all experienced when we show up authentically to our journey and to who we are is that others are positively affected along the way. Other people begin to enter your orbit. Other people catch your vision. And so this thing that you built, in many ways, just to honor that call, that invitation, that voice in your head, you built it really to help yourself, and yet by doing it, it began to help others, right? They will come. And I think about this community that, I've been so fortunate to be a part of for a little over 3 years, but who has been around, this community has been around for multiple decades, and it has such a long history of people who have shown up without the guarantee that they will come, right? Because this is not a traditional place. In many ways, it's a place that is pioneering a new way to be in spiritual community together. And so there was never a guarantee that they will come, which means that every time someone shows up and finds belonging and finds safety and inclusion here, it is an affirmation and a powerful reminder for us that by simply doing this thing that we have felt called to, that it's held weight and impact in someone else's life. And for you, I just invite you to reflect today on impact. What is your impact? Who is your they? And I recognize that is not a grammatically correct sentence. Right? That is a sentence that if I typed it into Microsoft Word, it would probably get the blue squiggly line. But I want to really ask you that. I want you to hone in on that today. Have you ever wondered that there might be people out there that benefit from your story, that benefit from you simply showing up fully to your own life and your authenticity? As Brene Brown has said, your story is what you have, what you will always have. It's something to own. And when you own it, you open the door for others to do the same. I want to tell you a story about the first time in my life that I really found this to be true. I'll set the stage. This is the end of 7th grade, going into 8th grade, right? A very awkward time, at least for me, I imagine for everyone, right? And I was sort of, in my school, I would consider myself, I was like below the cool threshold. There was like a cool line, right? You could be above it or below it. I don't know how far down I was, but I was certainly below the cool line. And yet, I had the gumption to run for class president. And surprisingly enough, I made it to the top 2. And so it was interesting because my political opponent, my rival, he was kind of on the other side of things, right? He was popular, he was athletic, he was super well liked, and so this election was really kind of a showdown between two sides of this middle school experience. And the day before the election, I remember I am leaving school, I'm leaving my last class, and there is this classmate of mine. His name is John, and he comes up to me, and I'll just paint you a picture about John. John, I say this with truly with love and appreciation. John was a nerd. I was uncool, but John was a proper nerd, so much so that he owned his nerdiness. He was so in it, right? He had like a carrying case for his scientific calculator. And I remind you, you don't need scientific calculators in middle school. He just had that thing for pleasure, apparently, right? So he was a proper nerd. And he came up to me and he said, Jake, I'm going to vote for you tomorrow. And I said, oh, well, thank you. And he said, he continued, he said, your opponent, like, he kind of represents all the cool people, but you represent us. And I went, us? But then I said, oh, okay, all right, yeah, for sure. And he said, he said something that I'll never forget to this day. He said, Jake, it's like you're the king of the lowlifes. And honestly, I think to this day, I'm probably going to get that tattooed somewhere eventually. It's a good line. But I realized something in that moment. I realized, and I've continued to it's dawned on me more and more as time has gone on. It's that just by doing what I felt called to do, by standing up in my own life, right, following this nudge, I was actually allowing for this other person to feel seen, to feel validated, to feel like he had some representation or he belonged in the world. Now, unfortunately, I did not win. Okay, I did not win the campaign. However, I feel like the lesson I learned was more valuable, and it reminded me that even to this day, right, when you or I, when we operate out of our authenticity, when we operate out of our freedom or our inner peace or our courage, just by being who we are, we give other people permission to do the same. If we build it, they will come. And so with that, I just want to wrap up this series with 3 guiding statements, with this recognition that what we do, what we build, has an impact in this world, right? What is your impact? And so the first statement that I hope is helpful for us in this journey: you are not for everyone. Do we know this on some level, friends, right? Right? Intrinsically, I think we've know this, or we've had enough experiences to realize this to be true. We can't please everyone. We can't be everything for everyone. It's been estimated that you and I, on average, meet around 80,000 people in our lifetime. This might be more, given the state of social media and the internet, but we just start there. 80,000 people, right? Do we think that all of those people are going to approve of us, right? Do we think that even the vast majority of those people are going to approve of us? I was trying to think of something in this world that everyone in the entire world unanimously approves of and likes. And I was thinking, what's the most universal experience or universal thing about humanity? And I was thinking, well, what about water? We're all made of water. We all need water to survive. And then I remembered, I know a lot of people who don't even like water. Right? Do we know these people, right? They need to put all kinds of powder in their water. It's okay, we love you. But if water cannot be unanimously loved and approved of by everyone in the world, then good luck to you, friends, right? Maybe we ought to stop trying. Maybe the trying so hard to please everyone and be everything for everyone dilutes, no pun intended, dilutes our effectiveness and our impact in the world. As leadership coach Seth Godin has said, when you speak to everyone, you speak to no one, right? When you try to please everyone, maybe you've lost your impact, and certainly you're not satisfied with yourself, right? I want to tell you a tale to illustrate this concept. I'm going to tell you a tale of the 2 late night Jimmies, okay? All right, one of these Jimmies, and I don't know if you're kind of familiar, you follow late night, but one of these Jimmies has been very controversial lately. He has stood up to power. He has spoken truth to those in power, and he has faced a lot of repercussions from this. He has almost lost his job because of it. And even following that, he stood up and he said, look, I understand you might not agree with me. You might disagree with me. You may agree or disagree with those in power. But what is essential is that we, as a free society and as a democracy, have the right to critique those in power, that we retain the right to speak up, agree with me or not. And so in many ways, by being somewhat controversial, not just simply for the sake of being controversial, but by taking stances, by willing to be bold, he has faced heat and he has faced controversy, but he is also standing for something. So that's one of those Jimmys, right? You might know which one it is, right? The other Jimmy primarily makes puns, okay? And that's about it. And, he seems to avoid saying anything controversial, anything too incendiary, so that, he kind of keeps the heat off of him. And again, you might say love him or hate him. Probably the reality is you probably don't feel either. You're probably kind of lukewarm about this Jimmy. Now, the question I have for you is this. Which Jimmy do you want to be in the world? Because, friends, when we operate out of fear of disapproval, out of fear of not making sense, out of fear of being too much for some people or too little for other people, we lose our impact in the world. Are we being guided by fear, or are we being guided by love and by truth and by authenticity? As Glennon Doyle says, you will be too much for some people. Those just are not your people. And this is something that I think our community has had to understand through the years, because look, realize it or not, what we are doing here has some controversy to it, right? For every person that walks through these doors and finds belonging and finds inclusion and safety and solace by coming here, there's also people who point out what we're doing and say, you're all heretics or you're blasphemous, right? What we're doing is challenging a lot of the spiritual and religious norms of our time. We might be too much of one thing for someone and too much of something else for someone else, right? There are people who come through our doors and they say, maybe a little too much God or Jesus talk. And there are other people the same day that might be like, not really enough God or Jesus talk, right? And so it's impossible to please everybody. I once had a visitor who came to our community, and they came just the one time, and then they emailed me afterwards, and they said, I did not like it. I will not be coming back. This was about 2 years ago, and I emailed them back, and I said, no problem. Best of luck to you on your journey to find something that resonates with you. About a week ago, this person emailed me back again, and they said, just checking in, still don't like you. Still not coming. And, the truth is I genuinely still wish this person the best, but I'm not going to lose any sleep over this person, because I've also seen so much profound healing and transformation and restoration happen for so many people in this community. And I realize that, friends, the more we own who we are, the more we are grounded in who we are, the less we get caught up and wrapped up in trying to change ourselves to be everything for other people. As the great author Anne Lamott has said, I think this is just been a really powerful guiding statement for me. Lighthouses don't go running all over an island looking for boats to save. They just stand there shining. Friends, instead of busying ourselves with trying to fill all the needs of everyone in our lives or in the world around us, what if we spent some time asking ourselves, what kind of lighthouse am I? What am I illuminating just from sharing my story? Right? Like this community, we know we can't be everything for everyone, but I think about that 22% of Americans who call themselves spiritual but not religious. The 29% of Americans that, when asked for their religious affiliation, they mark none. So they're called the nuns. And this is anywhere from 60 to 90 million people in this country if you do the math. Now, I understand that only a fraction of those people live in Tucson, and I understand that only a fraction of those people may actually be actively looking for a spiritual community to belong to, but nonetheless, even if it's just one more person, it might mean the world for them to find this place. Because, friends, you are not for everyone, but you might mean everything to someone. This is a shift from quantity into quality, right? Because there's a certain limit, right? No matter how large or small, there is a limit on how many people we might be able to impact in our lifetime. But really, there's no tangible limit to the amount of impact that you can have on a person, how much you might mean to them, how much transformation, hope you can bring to someone. And I guarantee you, friends, I guarantee you that simply just by being you, you have made the difference in someone's life in a way that you couldn't even possibly imagine. You might be the reason, you probably are the reason that someone is still here today, right? And you may never know. I spoke to one of our longtime community members in between services. This is another one that just for you, second service. And she said to me, there was this moment where this coworker was going through a hard time, and I just wrote a little inspiring message on a Post-it note and gave it to her, and thought nothing of it. 20 years later, this woman had reached out to her and said, I just want you to know, I look at that Post-it note every single day on my computer for the last 20 years, and it's kept me going. And she thought nothing of it. Friends, you have those stories in your life. You have that Post-it note, that thing that was really maybe just a small little blip for you of just being yourself, and yet it might have meant everything to someone. Right? As patron saint of our times, Fred Rogers has said, if you could only sense how important you are to the lives of those you meet, how important you can be to the people you may never even dream of, there is something of yourself that you leave at every meeting with another person. I find that really acknowledging this actually takes a lot of the pressure off from being perfect, from trying to fill all of the needs of others. Instead, it's a reminder to be fully yourself, and you give others permission to do the same. It might make all of the difference in someone else's life. And in a way, this is a very Eastern, perhaps Zen, or perhaps Taoist concept, because, in the Tao in particular, there's a lot of talk of really do what you're called to, and let go of the attachment to the results. Give your gift and let it go. In fact, in chapter 9 of the Tao Te Ching, it says, do your work, then step back, the only path to serenity. Friends, maybe you are incredibly gifted in, let's say, encouraging, inspiring others, being there for other people, offering encouragement, insight, advice, right? Can you do that and let go of any control of what that person does with your encouragement or your advice? Can you give the gift and let go? Right? Perhaps you make something. Perhaps that's what you do. You build things, you create things in the world. And yet, once you're finished, right, whether you give it away or whether you post it on social media or whatever, once you're done, in some way it doesn't fully belong to you anymore. Artists understand this, that in many ways, part of creation is the letting go. Just like having a child, at some point you let them go out into the world. And so, friends, what we realize is that when we build and we follow that nudge to build something, at a certain point, it's not just about you anymore. And in fact, it might mean all the difference for someone else in this world, right? So you're not for everyone, but you might mean everything to someone. And lastly, you can help who you can help. See, I have some bad news, and I hope you're sitting down for this. I think you all are, right? We're all sitting down. Okay. You cannot fix the whole world by yourself. I'm sorry to say this. I hated to be the person to break it to you, right? But you can have untold impact on your slice of the world. We are all stewards of part of this world. And as author, mythologist Clarissa Pinkola Estes once said, ours is not the task of fixing the entire world at once, but of reaching out to mend the part of the world that is within our reach. Maybe the most important question that you can ask yourself today is, what is within your reach? Is it physical, tangible? Maybe a physical location? Like, I think about our community. And yes, we have an online community. We have some impact to some places that aren't physically here in Tucson. But in many ways, the majority of our impact lives in our city with the human beings that we are in physical proximity to. So what's that for you? Maybe it is a place for you. Maybe it's a people. Maybe it's a sort of tribe. It's a friend group. It's family, right? The question to ask really is, what is your sphere of impact? And while in a certain sense, your sphere of impact is finite, it's also generally much bigger than we realize. And when we show up in the truth of who we are, it will grow. It will grow. So something like this pledge campaign, which is our way of a community, is just envisioning what our growth might look like in the future. It's not about a bigger building. It's not about a bigger budget. It's about increasing our sphere of impact, because we know we might not be for everyone, but we might mean everything to someone, and we can help who we can help. So I just want to kind of illustrate this a little bit with how I like to think about, growth for our community. So do you mind if can I borrow this chair? This is the one right here. You're good. You can relax. So when I think about our community and I think about what our next stage of life is and what our next step is, I always come back to this simple image of the empty chair. I'm standing on an empty chair right now. And for me, the empty chair is a representation of someone who has yet to walk through these doors. The person who will one day sit in this chair is actually out there in the world right now, and they might be feeling alone, feeling isolated, feeling a lack of belonging in the world, feeling like they would just love for a place to be and a community to be with, where they felt seen, felt understood, felt gotten, right? Felt like they could explore spirituality in a way where they felt safe and open-minded. And I think about that person, and I think perhaps if nothing more, if all we do is about creating a space so that that person may one day walk through these doors and find all those things, right? That to me boils down to every idea of what we could possibly be shooting for when it comes to growth, right? But really the question I have for you is, what is your empty chair in your life? What, in the things that you're building and who you are, what is your empty chair? What is that thing that if you could just focus on that one person, right? That one life that you could impact through just owning your story, through being who you truly are in your authenticity, that it might make all the difference, even if it's just for one person, and it would inspire you to keep going, right? What does that empty chair mean for you? Marianne Williamson has something really, I think, simple and powerful to really wrap all of this up, perhaps even the whole series. She says, as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. In fact, I think this is kind of the message of this whole series. Friends, may we shine our light, though it might be risky, though it might be costly, though it might feel terrifying, because it will make all the difference in someone's life, even in ways that you could never possibly know. Because if we build it,